President, this week we honor and celebrate the 100th day of our 47th president, Donald J. Trump. I don't know about you, but it's been a blur to many of us, but I believe it's been a bold blur. As I searched over the last week to think about the words to describe these first 100 days, I think of the word consequential. That these first 100 days have been some of the most consequential we've ever seen in American history. And I think about a vision. I think of it, my vision is this big ship we call America, and she's slowly changing course back into the wind. And it's a good direction. At times we have to tack into the wind, but the direction is positive. And it's exciting for me to see an 11-point surge in optimism in this country in January of this year alone. But to sum it up, what I've seen in these first 100 days is a return to American greatness. A return to American greatness. And I think I see his theme of promises made and promises kept by this president. You know, first and foremost, President Trump campaigned to secure our border. That was his top priority, to secure our border. And think about what's happened since he was sworn in. Under Joe Biden, we saw in days 10,000 people crossing our border illegally. Some days it was 11,000. But under President Trump, we're now averaging less than 300 of those border crossings a day. We went from 10,000 a day to 300 in a day. That's a promise made and a promise kept. President Trump also campaigned that he would make your family safer and more secure. And to that end, he's deported 130,000 violent criminal aliens. And as I travel the state and talk to law enforcement officers, to a person, they tell me that the number of violent crimes is down, the fentanyl poisoning is down. Indeed, the president's plan of securing our border has led to the health and safety of our families. President Trump promised that he'd roll back regulations. To that end, of his 135 executive orders, many have done just that, cutting red tape and saving American families some $2,000 each. Another promise made and another promise kept. President Trump said we're going to drill, baby, drill. One of my favorite expressions from his campaign, drill, baby, drill. And indeed, America once again is drilling. And we've seen gasoline prices drop across America. It was common just a couple of years ago under Joe Biden to see gasoline at over $4 a gallon. Today, all across the state of Kansas, it's averaging under $2.60 a gallon. So it's dropped from $4 to $2.60 a gallon. That's a promise made and a promise kept. Well, what about groceries, you ask? So last month, we saw the smallest increase in the consumer price index since the spring of 2020. Since the start of COVID, this is the smallest increase in grocery prices that we've seen. Now, it would take 30 minutes, maybe an hour for me to talk about all the things that President Trump has accomplished in these first 100 days, but I want to just highlight a few more. He's terminated the EV mandate. He's slowed the green energy transition. He's ended boys and girls sports. Under DOGE, he's cut over $100 billion, saving American taxpayers money. He's got America out of the World Health Organization, out of the Paris Climate Agreement, establishing once again that he's an American first president. But one thing I'm really excited about is this economic boom that we're starting to see. That President Trump talks about this $7 trillion of investment into America that has been promised. And so much of that is going to lead to good-paying manufacturing jobs, jobs with benefits, and that we're seeing that already across the state of Kansas. These last 2 weeks, I was very purposeful visiting several of our manufacturing companies, probably a dozen of them. And to a company, each one was describing the increase in sales that they're having, a big increase in the number of products that are wanted in the future. Why? Because they're American-made, because they're using American steel and American aluminum. And I think that that's what we can do with this Trump economy, is that his tariffs are bringing those manufacturing jobs back to this country, and indeed they're great jobs. I want to take a second here and put up a poster, Mr. President. You know, much has been made about the stock market the last week or two. But I think that this chart of the Dow Jones Industrial Average over the past 100 years is another sign of American greatness. You know, there's been days which aren't as good, but the trend here is what? It's upward. And you look at just the last several days, the last week here, there's a small little blip here, a very small blip, but in relationship to what? I would remind Americans that the Dow today is up 5% compared to a year ago. The NASDAQ is up almost 10% compared to a year ago. The trend is the right way, and I don't know about you, but I'm betting on America. We've had 5 days in a row now of the Dow Jones increasing in value. That's the longest winning streak we've seen in almost a year. And who knows, maybe today will be the 6th day where we've seen the Dow go up as well. But to me, this stock market is another example of American greatness, and I wouldn't bet against us. Look, my belief is that President Trump has declared the apology tour is over with, that we're boldly putting America and Americans first. Gone is the despair of the Biden era. Today, families are safer, life is more affordable, and traditional family values are now thriving. Young Americans now have a renewed hope that they can chase their own American dream. That dream was gone the last 4 or 5 years, but today the American dream is alive and well. What's that American dream look like? Raising a family, owning a home, and building a brighter future. And I think a lot of this is due to President Trump's leadership because he's delivering strength, prosperity, and opportunity to Americans. Again, 100 days, promises made, promises kept. Mr. President, I yield the floor.